Welcome to Women Entrepreneurs Radio with your host, Deborah Bailey. When I started this podcast in 2008, I was on a mission to promote women business owners, creatives, and entrepreneurs. In each episode, my guests provide resources, valuable tips, and inspiration. Women Entrepreneurs Radio is about showing women how to harness their natural strength to achieve success on their own terms. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Women Entrepreneurs Radio with your host, Deborah Bailey. I'm so glad that you could join us today. And I am going to get started by introducing my guest, Paige Cornetet. And she's the best-selling author of the Spend Then series, a collection of children's books teaching financial literacy by simplifying traditionally complicated concepts. In a forward-thinking entrepreneur, Paige founded Millennial Guru at the age of 26 to provide companies like Kroger and Capital One with business coaching and strength-based team-building workshops. Paige is the eldest of four, is passionate about helping parents teach children imperative life skills and financial management techniques. And she lives in Grand Rapids, Michigan. So welcome to the show, Paige.
Thank you, Deb, for having me on. I'm so looking forward to talking to you today.
So, as I usually ask my guests, and I certainly want to find out more about how you are doing all your work, particularly with your writing and your entrepreneurship and how you're putting all this together. So you could please share with us how you got started in the work that you do.
Yeah, absolutely. So I started at age of 26 and I always knew I wanted to start my own business. And what was it that I wanted to do? I wasn't sure, when I was in college and coming out of college and working. So I tried a lot of different jobs, and I actually saw a speaker who did like a team building workshop that was a Strength Finders coach, and I was like, oh, I can do that. Like, I would love to do that. And I was working for an accounting firm at the time. So financial background, but strengths, it's kind of like, how did you end up there? And so I got my Gallup Strength Finders certification, and it was like, I love this. I love helping people. I love helping people work on themselves. And then as I built my business of Millennial Guru and had kind of gigs all over, I was like, there has to be more than just yourself. It's really great to understand your strengths, but how can I be even more impactful? And I have a obviously very deep financial background with learning at the age of 3 from my parents of financial lessons and meanings. I was like, how can I help people with their wealth as well? So yourself and your wealth. And I created this financial children's book series called Spend Then to help teach kids, because I was like, if a kid can understand it, anybody can understand it. So let's start at the very beginning. And then I went on to write this new book, which is really the parent guide, my dad's class, of how parents and grandparents can be really intentional about teaching the next generation, and using really fun tools to teach about money and banking and investments and all those sort of things that are really hard. Everyone feels like they have a hard time teaching. How do I do that? How do I teach my kids that? What do I do? So now I'm kind of in this next stage of now I'm an author of my business. So
That's great. Really, because you can see how the progression that you have, have gone to get to where you are right now. And I think it's, as you mentioned, parents really sharing this information with their children and really trying to get them in the right frame of mind. And, do you think that's something that you benefited from, your parents really sharing these lessons with you?
Oh, absolutely. And it started with my family, with our values, our family values, and what was
Hmm.
important to us. And there was always a sense of that we can do anything that we want as kids, and the entrepreneurship theme I feel like ran really deep within my family. My family's business owners were creative. We're always thinking about new ways to start businesses or own businesses or take, cool marketing ideas from other companies. And so by starting with like what was the values of everything, it was easy to transition as a young child to then all of these financial lessons because it's like, oh, so what's important to us is how we show that through our budget. Like, so
Hmm.
if shared experiences is important to us, we show that by spending money on family vacations. Oh, okay. Like that makes a lot of sense.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
That's true. That's such a great point because I think that that doesn't always, maybe it's not even that that shouldn't doesn't happen. A lot of people don't always look at it that way when you're thinking about giving these kind of financial lessons to children. I think often it's a matter of, well, don't spend your money or make sure you
Right.
save.
Yes, exactly. Like we don't spend our money on that, or we can't afford that, or
Yes.
the limitations
Yes.
of money. Where my parents really put the money as a tool in our hands, and we were able to use it and spend it and earn it and learn about it. And so if I spent the $100 on the limited two outfit, well, okay, was it worth it? Did I learn that I liked that?
Mm.
And really giving those experiences at home before you leave the house and you go to college and you're like, oh, what are all these free credit cards and it's free money? It's like,
Yeah.
no, it's not. I've already learned that lesson a couple times before.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I think that's a big thing that happens when people go away to school and then the credit cards come and suddenly it seems like you could just have everything that
Yes.
you want, but that's not really teaching you these things that you need to be an entrepreneur though.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Exactly. Because it running a family household is very similar to running a business. I mean, it's
Mm.
just increasing, the margin, right? So increasing sales, lowering expenses, and providing good customer service. It's basically the exact same thing with a family. It's what's our income, what are our expenses, and then that in between left over, and the customer service is really the values part of it. So
Mm.
it translates really nicely if you are intentional about how are we doing this as a family,
Mm.
and then how do we do it as a business too? Because businesses have corporate values and there's purpose behind why
Mhm.
are we doing this, especially entrepreneurship, right? There has to
Mhm.
be that fire within you
Right.
because it's such a commitment, right? Like I can
Mhm.
do it, right?
Mhm.
And so I think that there's that same similar sense of, ownership and intentionality and purposefulness behind the money in both areas.
Hmm. And it seems to me that I hear more about, younger people starting businesses when they're children or starting them in college. And not to say that wasn't happening before, but it seems like I see it more and more. And do you feel that these younger generations are getting a different message?
That's a good question. I think so. I think the side hustle has become like a really new thing, as well as media, with all this like different seeing what other people are doing and being like, "Ooh, maybe I can do that."
Hmm.
It's very inspiring. Where before, I feel like when I was growing up, we didn't have social media, so it was just your community, right? Like
Hmm.
maybe you knew one person that started a business or a couple people, but did you really know what exactly they did? Not necessarily. So I think that because there's a lot more access to seeing what others are doing, there's a lot more inspiration behind it. And as anyone that has ever started their own business will learn very quickly that it is hard work. Yeah. Oh, it's not as easy as I thought it was going to be. So,
Mhm. Mm. That's a great that's a great point. Yeah, that's a great point, actually. That's something people find out, I think, rather quickly. Um, but as far as what you're doing, do you look at your books and being an author as entrepreneurial, or are you looking at that as just a part of your whole picture that you
I look at that as a part of my whole picture. It's an
Mhm,
extension of myself and my
mhm,
knowledge. I hope that I will be able to help other people, other families, other kids learn about it. But yeah, I see kind of my business really overarching as Millennial Guru with services and products and helping people with your themselves and their wealth.
mm. And that certainly is a very, I guess, a good area to expand in because,
Yes.
yeah.
It's important. It's very important. Both are very important. So,
Yes. That certainly is because money and wealth building kind of things are always very popular and important for people to learn. And you're right now your books are for children and parents. And are you also looking to talk to other millennials right now who are also looking for this kind of information so they can now, build a business or they can handle their wealth a lot better?
yes, absolutely. I mean, it's not just, and it's interesting because I'm a millennial and I'm a parent.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm. Mhm.
we're the ones that are stepping into this new role of parents.
Mhm.
And yeah, I mean, it's all encompassing. I want to help people, be intentional parents, communicate with their children, involve their families on their journey. I mean, even better if they are entrepreneurs. I remember my family businesses in fabrics, and I remember sorting, fabric swatches or cutting them, when I was 10, and it was
Mhm.
like, oh my gosh, but I was involved in the family business, and it was like, oh, okay, this is what we do. We sell fabric. Like, okay.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
it is hard work. And comprehending that someone's got to do stuff. So
Mhm.
to make the business operate.
Mhm.
So yes, absolutely.
So it sounds like you would encourage other parents, other moms who have business to really have their children get involved.
Yes. I think
Mhm.
that's the best thing that you can do with your children is have them participate. In my book, I talk a lot, I have a lot of different examples and a lot of different activities that how you can do it for different ages. Obviously, a 3-year-old is going to look very different than a 13-year-old of comprehension, but
Mhm.
you can still get them involved because it's really cool that if you own your own business and you started it or stepped into a business that the kids understand what you do,
Mhm.
and inspire them maybe too. Everyone always, I'm sure you hear this a lot, but everyone always talks about the lemonade stand, but it's like,
Mhm.
well, what does mom do? Oh, she runs a strategic business. Well, what does that mean? Let's get creative and maybe start our own business too as a kid.
Mhm. 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 Yeah, that's true. That's a great point because that really encourages them to take that step. At any age, really, because what I'm seeing, a
Yes.
lot of kids are out there doing things. So,
Exactly, exactly. You hear of those stories all the time, and you're like, that's amazing.
Mhm.
This kid that started this dog collar company or this cool thing that, helps people and it's just taken off, with their products. It's great.
Mhm. And so, I guess as a mom, what do you feel are some challenges as far as everything you're doing in your entrepreneurial role, but then also balancing, with the parents' role?
Yes. Pay for your time. I think Time and energy and money are so, those are kind of the three main buckets. And we only have so much time and energy in our day as a mom and as a business owner. And you really need to prioritize what's the most vital for you. And so if you can outsource and pay for things that require a lot of time and energy for you, that can be really beneficial to your well-being, your family. And so I think that, yes, paying for your time can be vital as a mom and a business owner.
I definitely could see that. Because it seems that a lot of times women particularly feel like they have to do everything. It's hard for them to let go
Yes.
of that. So have you ever had that challenge, or did you realize, no, I know how I have to handle this?
No, I've always been really comfortable with outsourcing. I know that things can, of course, go wrong, but that's life, right? And
Mhm,
you adjust and you figure out, the people on your team. And I think being a business owner really taught me that too, to trust in my employees and my, partners, to rely on other people to do it, not just me. And that has helped me within my family too, because it's like, okay, I don't have to do everything too. So
mhm,
they're very translatable. But yes, I have a lot of friends that it's like, oh, but I have to do it, right? And it's like,
mm,
no, but do you? Like
mhm,
where is the most important, area or arena that you need to be spending your time? And that can look different for everyone. So
mhm,
asking those questions to yourself, and what's your priority and what do you like to do and what gives you energy that you feel like you can, take a lot of time and energy on, that fills your cup. Focus on that, because not everyone wants to stay at home with their kids or be
mhm,
they. So I think just understanding what's important to you and what lights you up, um, can be vital to
mhm,
being a mom and an entrepreneur.
mm.
Entrepreneur.
Right. Right, because there's a lot of hats that you have to wear, and just kind of
Yes.
keeping up with everything that has to be done. So, and as far as your writing, where how do you find the time to make sure that you can get that in there too?
Oh, great question. So I use a company. I'm a really great talker. I always say, like, I
Mhm,
process out loud. Writing things down has never come really naturally for my train of thought. So I outsourced. I hired a company to help record my book, and then they scribed it for me, and they've
mhm,
been amazing. Scribe Co-op based out of Austin, Texas.
mhm,
And it's been an amazing process working with them. So it's been work, don't get me wrong, but it's been very different than me sitting behind a desk and typing on my computer, which I think a lot of people visualize when you write a book, locking
mhm.
yourself in a cave. That's not what I did.
Well, that's really a great idea, because for a lot of people, that's how they get their ideas out there. So
Yes.
those people who may be afraid, that they don't particularly like sitting there and writing the words, but they love speaking, and that is really encouraging for people to know that there's not just one way that they have to produce a
Yes.
book.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that that was really encouraging to me, when I was working with this company, because it was like, okay, this is a lot easier for my strengths and my skill sets, and
Mhm,
it's scheduled and I have to do it. And there's of course a financial commitment, but at the same time, it made the process way easier than feeling all those, oh, I have to do this, and I don't really want to, but I need
mhm,
to, that we kind of play those mental games with ourselves. So,
mhm. Yeah, and if it's something you don't really feel comfortable doing, then of course you're not going to really feel excited about.
exactly.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and that's the problem. Then those ideas aren't going to get out there, because you just don't. That's not really what appeals to you. Um,
Right.
Yeah. So that's another thing too that people need to keep in mind that there's, as I said, there's different ways to accomplish that. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about your latest book, My Dad's Class?
Yeah, so it's an intentional structure about how to teach kids about money and life. And it breaks it down really starting as the child is born up until 18 years old. And it's my personal story of how my parents taught myself and my siblings, how they did really easy, simple lessons. My dad sat down with us every Saturday. We had a notepad and a pen. Of course, after cleaning our room in zones, and my dad was a very strict man, but fun. He still made it always very fun for us.
Hmm.
And then we would sit down and have a financial lesson, and it would be kind of whatever the flavor of the week was. Maybe it was something that he read, maybe it was about the economy, maybe it was about our investments. And it was really intentional parenting to include us kids and let us make the mistakes. And you earn money, save money, spend money is really what we talked about a lot, and the different
Hmm.
areas. And I'm sure you've heard of like the marshmallow test with delayed gratification.
Hmm.
He used, when we were very young, jelly beans, which was that's easy and it's fun, and they're little for little kids. And then as we got older, he transitioned into like the gold dollar coins, which is very like, ooh, as a kid. And then still use that sort of same lesson of delayed gratification. If you don't spend these this week, then I'll double it for you. And it's really fun to have 20 gold coins, in your hands as a child. And so my book is great for parents, families that maybe even themselves didn't have a financial upbringing or background. And I realized that as I was writing the book, like my story is very unique and my parents were very unique. And I think that there's a lot of amazing ideas and tangible, actionable activities that families can do today. If your kids are older and they're not in their, 3, 5, 6, 8 years old, and they're in
Hmm.
their teenage years, you can still implement things from my book into your kids and with your family. So.
Hmm. And that's great because you really are not going to go wrong with some real financial knowledge. I think that's something that doesn't
Yes.
really get taught in school. I'm not sure what happens now to kids in school, but not sure that that's ever really been emphasized.
It really hasn't. And I think that there's a lot of people and states, government programs that are trying, and nonprofits that try,
Mhm.
to get it into the schools. But my whole thought was, if you can do it with your family, because your kids are
Mhm.
going to learn from you regardless
Mhm.
if you are
Yeah.
intentional or not. They're
Yeah.
going to pick up what you're putting down, sometimes
Mhm.
the good and sometimes the bad.
Mhm.
And so I was like, it's so important to do it in the household and the family, because someone coming into your classroom and doing, a 1 day lesson, okay, that's nice, but what is the kid
Mhm.
remember that, and what
Yeah.
did they learn? And wants versus needs. Okay, they already understand that, they want a pizza or, a chocolate chip cookie. Like they get that. So
Mhm. Mhm. Right. And yeah, and I think and we've been kind of touched on that before with the advent of social media, that it just seems like I can't even imagine how difficult it must be with children, younger people who are seeing all these things on social media, seeing these Instagram lifestyles. And you talk about delayed gratification, like how hard is that really for a parent to grapple with right now?
Ooh, that's a whole nother podcast. But you got to have me on again and we'll talk about that.
Right.
Yes. But yes, we're all in this together, learning together.
Right, because it seems like, this is something that adults even will really be mesmerized by because everything looks so wonderful. And it just seems like things have shifted as far as, when we were younger, parents could probably talk about saving and all that, and it seems so much easier. But now I'm not sure how you really are
Right.
going to have to work to really help your children see that there's a different way to do it.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Lead by example, right? Like you can do it.
Exactly.
You can do it.
Exactly, because it is, once they're able to understand, I think, how that works and how it could benefit them, I think that that would really be helpful for more people to learn and definitely to learn it much younger than usually we do. Unfortunately, then later we're trying to play catch up, and it can be very, very hard to do by that point. And
Yep.
you talk also about the side hustle and all that. Um, what is your take, I guess, just on like that kind of side hustle culture right now? Because it just seems like people are doing so many different things and just trying to, I guess, make money or just trying to get their business off the ground. Do you
Mhm.
feel that there's potential for people often to end up burning out because they're trying to do it all?
Yeah, I think it goes back to, time and energy versus money, right?
Mm,
So again, where are you spending your time and money? Now, I think the side gigs culture is great if you can
mm-hmm,
be successful with it. It's
mm-hmm,
amazing. A lot of my friends have done it and they've paid off their student loans with it. There's a purpose, there's a goal behind it. And it can be very inspiring. And it's like, oh, okay, now we paid off our student loans with this, but now we have this business. Like, how cool is
mm-hmm,
that? So
mm-hmm,
I think that there's a lot of pros that can come out of it, but I definitely think that there are a lot of cons, like you spoke about, of burning out. And so it's important to realize, like, okay, well, what's the goal? What's the end goal here? Is it for something, or do we have a target? Is it, or is it just because I want to do it?
mm-hmm.
Is can be again the time energy versus money bucket can, it's just important to realize that and look at that. So,
Hmm. Yeah, that's a great point about being intentional because a lot of times I think we're not intentional.
right. Let's just do it. Why not?
Right.
Let's try. It's like, okay, but like a little, like, but why? Why?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a big one. And also with the entrepreneurial, shiny objects kind of syndrome where you're always
Yes.
running around.
Yes. Well, exactly. And it's like, let's not change every month, right? This is not flavor of the month. Um, and being an entrepreneur like that is hard to do.
Mhm.
I understand it completely because it's like, oh, but this looks so cool. And oh, I can do
Mm,
this thing. And oh, I can do that. And it's like, yes, 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 yes. But like, let's focus on what is working for you and just continue on that and having the intentional goals and what is this providing for me, right? If it's
mm,
because sometimes the side gigs can just be, oh, well, it's providing a little money, but it's not really, right? But it's providing fulfillment. I don't know, maybe
mm,
you're getting a lot out of it,
mhm,
which is great. And so, okay, if that's your goal, then do it. If it's
mhm,
providing money, which I'm assuming that a lot of people immediately jump into it with that, then that's great too.
mhm,
So asking those bigger questions of yourself, of kind of like why you're doing it and working on the business, not just like in it and doing it, I think can be really helpful for the direction that you go.
mhm. Yeah, again, that's another great point because as you're saying, it's like you're being intentional and where you're trying to go. And it's not just, oh, this hot new thing I saw. So now I'm going to do this, but next week, oh, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that.
Right? Like, exactly. Like, for all of you out there that want to be an entrepreneur, it is hard work. So it is not easy to change. Like, yes, it's like get your head space right, your head and your heart space right before you dive into it because it's intense. So
And that is so true. Yeah, because it looks differently from the outside. So,
yes, it does. It very much so does.
So it's really good that people have that idea before they
Hmm.
make those commitments, particularly, financial commitments, and then they find out that this really wasn't the um, best way to go. And, just also a quick question from your point of view. I know a lot of times women, or, maybe even younger people, not always younger, but people will try to start something and use a lot of credit cards, and sometimes they end up getting kind of into a lot of debt to try to start a business.
Yes.
What happens when you find that someone has kind of gotten themselves into that?
Yeah, no, and I mean, those are hard lessons to learn, right? That's
Mhm.
like, those are great lessons to learn, but definitely hard. And I,
Mhm.
encourage, don't spend what you don't have, right? And that's
Mm.
the same within your household budget. That's the same within your business. And be watchful and aware, of what you are spending money on when you're starting your business. And it is easy. A lot of places want to give you free money too, but guess what? Like
Mhm.
that, you have to pay that back. So you
Mhm.
gotta, I think just being aware of that, and making sure that you're not, if you want a functional business, you don't want to have a lot of debt. It can be helpful depending on what stage you are at, but especially if you're starting out,
Mhm.
let's not do that first. Like let's 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 be intentional with what we're spending money on, right? Like let's
Mm.
let's earn some money, and of course if it needs to go to something, and it's important and it's going to help, the longevity of the business and the sales and everything, great. But
Mhm.
yes, I think just being err on the side of caution.
Yes, yes. It's often something you learn after you've made the mistake,
Of course, right? Like, whoops, shouldn't have
right?
done that. Yep. But here we are now, so okay.
Exactly. You kind of make that mistake, and that had just occurred to me also because I was listening to a webinar, and they're we're selling something, program, and it's
Mhm.
like, oh well, you can make enough to pay this back in like a week or two, and I'm like, eh.
Yeah. Questions. I have a lot of questions. Yep, exactly. Yeah,
you
exactly.
know.
Yeah, so I have to pay for up front for this. Like, what does that look like? And I think that's a really great point of just understanding, what side of the table that you're sitting on with the debt. Like, do
Mm.
you owe or do they owe you, right? Like, what
Mhm.
does that look like? And you never want to be the in the spot where you owe too much, right? Like that
Mhm.
you can owe some, of course. Like
Mhm.
that's a point. The point of having a business is that, it's not on your personal credit card and you're able to, provide things for your company. But at the same time, let's not, let's be cautious, ladies, right?
Yes. Yes, I think that's definitely something that people should keep in mind, because there are a lot of those offers that sound wonderful, and the person is kind of asking you to invest in this thing you may not understand yet, kind of trying to convince you that sure you'll make the money right back and this debt will be paid right back, and
Right.
it's not always the case.
Exactly, exactly. And I think if you don't understand it too, is
Mhm.
don't do it, because I think
Mm.
that's really important, is like you need to understand what the product or the service is,
Mhm.
before you jump into it. And yeah, that's would be a word of wisdom, is if you don't understand it, don't do it.
Mhm. Mm. Mhm. Yes, I totally agree with that, because I think that's how sometimes people get caught, um, in that kind of cycle when they're trying to get off the ground with something, and then they figure, well, I'll just buy this,
Yep.
thinking, of course, I'll make money really quickly and all of that. And then when that doesn't come about, then there comes the frustration, and then of course now you've got the debt that you
Pay
have to deal.
off.
Yeah, yeah,
Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah.
and that can be very stressful. So it's something, definitely something else to keep in mind. But Paige, could you please share with the listeners where they can find you?
Yes, so mydadsclass.com is my website, and you can find all my information there, as well as Amazon. We're selling books on Amazon, and millennialguru.com. All my socials are on my website. So, thank
Great.
you.
So, and I think we touched on this before as well, as far as millennials, if you feel that the way that they look at money is much different than maybe some, generations before.
Yes. Well, and it's interesting. I've thought on this question a lot because I think that there is with the millennial generation, even the younger generation too, there's a
Mhm.
lot of heart in things. They want to know what companies are doing and why they're doing it, and are they being good stewards as businesses, right? For
Mhm.
the money, the environment, the people, all of that. So I think that and it's kind of a younger generation thing, right? Are you
Mhm.
being good stewards? And I think nowadays it's a lot easier to find out that information as well.
Mhm.
And they will invest their money, quote unquote, invest, right? It's spend
Mhm.
their money.
Mhm.
Um, where they feel like they trust in the brand and trust in the company. But there's also a swing too that I've noticed as well. It's like it's really easy to be loyal to a company, but also really easy to quickly be disloyal to a company too. And I think that's just with media. I think it's just with the times that we're living in too.
Mhm.
They do one bad thing and oh, we should boycott them. It's like, okay, well, if a person does one bad thing, are you going to stop being friends with them, or there's going to be a conversation around it. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, that's true. I think in the past, companies kind of thought, well, we can get people at a certain age and we'll have them forever. And that certainly doesn't seem to be the case anymore.
Nope.
Yeah.
Yep. Definitely not.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And
Mhm.
and from an entrepreneurial viewpoint, do you feel that as far as marketing to them, that you've got to do things a little differently, or is that constantly changing since everything is so connected and you've got social media and all that going on?
Yeah, I think that it depends on your business and depends what it is, right? A product or
Mm-hmm.
a service. I think
Mm-hmm.
products are a little bit trickier because you got to sell a lot more of them, where services can be a continuous relationship
Mm-hmm.
with people and with companies. Um, and so, yeah, I think that in the product world, again, depending on what type of business it is and what it is that you're selling, if you are retail or you're making it, it's an ever changing world. It seems like it's hard to keep up for even my mom friends who are entrepreneurs and are doing that. It's like, oh yeah, it's like, what do we find? Like, what's our thing? What's our platform that we're on?
Mm-hmm.
To get the sales. And it is ever changing. But I think if you can find the thing that works for you, and you have to have trust too. You got to try some things and you got to have some trust. And quite frankly, I think some old school systems still work.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
think I think it's all about the connection and the conversation and the people, and putting things out there, whether a product or a service that you believe in.
Mm-hmm.
Good things will come your way. So.
Mm. Yeah, and that's very important to note, because the word of mouth and building those relationships and having those connections and making conversations really are the things that are kind of like, the foundation of,
Yes.
yeah, yeah,
That hasn't gone away, and I don't think it ever will.
right. Exactly. You don't have to go out there and do TikTok videos if that's not what you want to do. It's like,
Exactly. You can do an email list. If you're building an email list and you have people that want your products and your services and like you and want to learn more information, you can still do that. I mean, there's nothing wrong with old school ways, I think.
mm-hmm,
I think they still work, they still exist. I know companies that still do mailers, right? They
mm-hmm,
send things to people's mail, right? So
mm-hmm.
it's yeah, it's you don't have to all be on TikTok and do the dance videos or whatever the trend of the day it seems.
Right.
So, yeah.
Well, yeah, I know my mailbox is full of mail mailers, so obviously that hasn't gone away.
Yes, exactly, exactly.
That hasn't stopped yet, so people are concerned about that. No, it doesn't happen yet.
They still exist. I mean,
Yes.
they still can get you, you know. Like, those, I still buy things, you know, on and with magazines because I'm a visual person. So I
Hmm.
like to touch things. So it's like, ooh,
Mhm.
that's cute, you know, and
Mhm.
so it can still work for you.
That's true. It's just finding the thing and if it lines up with what it is that you're selling and you know
Hmm.
how you do and how you reach your people. So that is very that's very true. So Paige, you know, this really been a really fun conversation. I think really touching on money and your books and definitely entrepreneurship. So before we wrap up, do you have any final thoughts you'd like to share?
Well, I love women and entrepreneurship. So I would highly encourage, you know, every person out there that, you know, is like, "Oh, how do I do this or where do I start?" It's like just do it, right? Like I think it's so vital that we have future business owners, whether it's you or whether it's your kids. You know, teach yourself, teach your kids and encourage, you know, get involved. I think that it's so important to have this community of women and leaders and entrepreneurs, and teaching the next generation that they can do it too.
Mhm. Exactly. And I think that really says it all. So, Paige, I want to thank you again for joining me on the show. This has been really great. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you, Deb. Thank you so much.
So, everyone, I know you've enjoyed this show. Please share this on social media, share it with your friends, and please stop by Paige's websites and check out her books and see what she has going on. So, once again, it's been Women Entrepreneurs Radio with your host, Deborah Bailey. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you next time. Bye bye.